Hello and so warm welcome everybody to this Inno Talk by Food and Biocluster Denmark. I am Heidi Højt Dyrholm and I am going to be your host today for this Inno Talk that is today being 1 hour, not 30 minutes like usual, as some of you may know. But Food and Biocluster Denmark is the national cluster that is driving innovation and transformation in the food sector. Today, we're going to talk about how to use AI and machine learning smarter in the food industry. And that is why I'm so lucky to have with me two experts on exactly that topic. You are following live, and that means you can ask questions along the way. For us to receive the questions, you have to fill in the blanket that is below the screen that you're seeing and push enter, and I will receive them on my phone that is here, and that's why I have my phone with me, so that I can see the questions that you're asking me. Also, I would be very happy if you would sign up to the right of the screen, in which you can put in your name and email address, and that is how we can also send you the slides that we are going to present to you today afterwards, together with some information that you might be happy to receive as well. So, with me today, I have two experts that are from our member company, Columbus AS, and that is Krogh Knudsen. You are the industry practice lead at Columbus. You have expert knowledge in optimizing the procedures and processes in the food industry. You have more than 20 years of experience implementing the Microsoft Dynamics and Dynamics 365 in many different production areas, but mainly within the food industry. And many of the clients that you've been working with are international or global organizations. Welcome, Bo.
Thank you.
If I were your client, when would I meet you?
You would meet me as soon as the sales guy has arranged the meeting. Then I'll be joining to do the pre-sales and demos and answer questions regarding the ERP system, what it can do and what we can make it do.
All right, thank you.
And then after that, when we hopefully get a project, I'll be joining from the start to the end, from analysis to design to implementation. So I'll be the main responsible for the solution.
Excellent, thank you. But next to you stands Benjamin Ryan, also from Columbus, flying in from all the way from Stockholm to be here today. And you are the Director of Data Science with Columbus, Sweden. You are focusing on bringing advanced analytics, AI and machine learning solutions to your clients. You bring with you 20 years of experience in data analytics, project management and strategic consulting. And you've had experience from around the world on this, I believe. But if I were a client of Columbus, when would I meet you in my process?
Sure. Well, very similar to Bo. Hopefully that would be in some of the earliest discussions as we're trying to identify what are the business goals or the business needs that we're trying to solve, so that I can help design the best solution and identify what we need to make it happen. But again, much like Bo, I work a little bit along throughout the process, from design through implementation to delivery and support.
All right, then we got that clear. Thank you so much, and warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
You have prepared with some nice slides that we would like to share with the audience, and that you will be following and explaining those along the way. First of all, we've been discussing in our preparation, when is it that you can use AI and machine learning in a smarter way if you are a food producer? And to sort of get a picture of how do companies typically work, why don't you take us through how food producers work today?
Yeah, I can try that. Well, we know that in order to get faster to market, or in order to always stay competitive, you have to always look into the customer's demands. So you actually always want to see if you can fulfill those demands. And demands from consumers are constantly changing, and even in a faster speed every day. So, and that can be within many different ways. We know way back we had everything should certainly be with licorice or with chili in it. Ice cream and cookies and so on should everything have the same flavor. And then it turned to some other flavors and so on. So that's just one thing. It's a flavor. Then you can also say today consumers are more and more looking at how sustainable a product is. And even before that, we were going from conventional products to ecological products or even biodynamic products. So there is a constantly shift in the demands. And in order for consumer or for the companies to stay ahead, they have to be innovative and fulfill these demands. If we look at the slide, we can also see that there could be some other reasons for being innovative. We have different family packages where, in order to not have food waste, we can put in 2 small chicken breasts and 2 big ones if you're a family of 2 adults and 2 children. Many households today is only 1 person. There are many singles today, so they do not want to buy a whole lot of food in a box, but only 1 beef or cutlet or whatever. And there could also be some situations that come from the outside, like now we have this supply crisis where we cannot get food from, or at least it's very expensive to transport food from South America to Denmark and so on. And it's not very sustainable either. And we all know COVID, what that did to us, and we were eating at home and not in the cantina in the office and so on. So there's a constant shift that the clients or the companies should adapt to. So in order to do that, they always have to look at the demands, and then they adapt to that. We can see there's a large focus on it as well, because how to get onto the market. Just earlier this week, I read that Krogh, one of the Danish bread producers, had hired an innovation manager in a new position in order to get more sustainable products and also to fulfill customer demands. So sometimes you don't have to look. You're not just looking at one of these requirements here. We have a customer that produces different kinds of protein powders, and that started with selling protein powders that they could mix with cold water, and then they had a protein drink. Then they developed for hot chocolates, so it could be a hot chocolate drink with protein. Then they thought, why don't we do pancake mix or waffle mix? So now they constantly change what can we produce, what consumers can we hit, not only those in the fitness centers, but also vegans that need more protein and so on. And they have in different sizes, family packages, small packages, and so on. So there's constantly a different approach to it.
So you are describing that there is a constant rush from the companies to stay up to date with the market, and that puts a pressure on being the first one to put the product on the market. Yeah, you've described this in a very nice way and with a good example of a protein producer. But then if you are one of these companies, want to stay competitive, you're a company that is now to develop the new products. What is it that you see that the typical food producing company will be having for a process to actually react to these markets and to be ready for the next product?
Yeah. If we look at the next slide, we can see this. There's of course many different ways that companies work with product development. But this is a normal or a standard procedure, you could say, that we have to discover some trends. That could be, well, we are going from conventional to ecological, or we are going from not sustainable products to sustainable products, or so on. And then you have to get the idea, how can I fulfill the demand in that trend? And when you have that idea, there's of course some internal development and internal testing of it, and then you send it out to a smaller group, a smaller sample of people to test it, get some feedback, and you might adjust it, or you might scrap it, or you say, okay, this was perfect, so you just go along with it. But there could be some iterations for the prototyping. And when you're done, you can ship it and sell it in a larger scale, and then you again get some feedback, and maybe you should adjust it, put some chili or licorice in it, or whatever you want. Again, if we take the example with the protein producer, then when they are doing prototyping, they have a sample, and then they sell a lot again through web shops. So they put a little sample into some of the boxes they send out to the customer that ordered the products, some other products, and then they ask for feedback. And based on that, they redevelop or send it to the market. And sometimes they also sell to fitness centers, of course. So sometimes they put it into selected fitness centers and say, see if it sells in those fitness centers. If it does, then they produce in larger scale and sell out.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
I'm also fully aware that what you're describing here is one model that is very generic and of course cannot apply to all. There's also discussion on how you will actually want to run or drive your innovation processes within the company. But roughly speaking, this is the picture that you're giving us.
Yeah, and of course there are some other stuff you have to do, for instance, for food producers. You would have to do some nutrition calculations and so on, and you also have to get the authorities to accept it, and so in some cases. So there is a lot of internal discussions as well.
Yes, of course. Right. So should we move on perhaps to where is it that AI and machine learning specifically can help you, that you help companies to improve when they start looking at what of these processes can we do in a quicker and smarter way in order to stay ahead of the competition?
Sure thing. Thanks, Heidi. So yes, I mean, there's lots of different places in the process that Bo was just describing, and in the environment of all these different things impacting time to market these days, where AI and machine learning can help quite a lot. We hear a lot of hype about it these days. People think that there's a huge amount of value here for companies, but it's a little bit of a mystery of like, what exactly is that value? I can confirm the short answer is a lot. We can get better insights, first off, into businesses, into customers, and into markets themselves. We can get more precise forecasts, looking into the future on those, diving into those customers, seeing who exactly they are, why they do what they do, why they buy or respond to marketing messages the way they do. But within businesses, this can also apply to just everyday processes. So using machine learning to help optimize business processes and overall supply chains is a huge area to provide value. And as well, looking at the actual functions of machines, applying things like predictive models to get ahead of problems that might arise in those systems, to fix them before they become problems and shutdowns. So there's lots of examples throughout that chain that we can go through, certainly.
All right. Well, why don't we just jump into it then and take it step by step?
let's
So these
do
are some
so.
of the advantages in a general perspective from your
Sure, sure,
as you
yeah.
experience it. Yes.
To kind of, yeah, let's make that a little more concrete then.
All right.
And maybe to start out in those first steps that Bo described, where we're discovering trends, where we're coming up with new ideas for new products to launch or new variations on an existing product. Traditionally, this has been an area where we do a lot of market research, customer surveys, and Bo is describing a couple ways that companies will try and get information from customers about prototypes or new ideas or existing products. And this is labor intensive. It takes a long time. It's generally expensive. And certainly within the customer's research industry, you're seeing all the time lower response rates as people just feel over-surveyed. They don't want to respond to surveys anyway. So a couple new powerful tools exist, however, to get around some of those problems and get to more real-time analysis of what is going on in the market, what the public thinks about different brands, different products, and how they feel about them. Mm-hmm. And so leveraging something like social media analysis, where customers or potentially even non-customers are having conversations and sharing opinions in public about these things all the time, whereas they might not respond to formal surveys, we have these tools now to be able to collect, to analyze that conversation at scale, and be able to extract from that, what brands, what topics, what products are they talking about, and what qualities maybe do they associate with those brands or those products. And finally, of course, we have models that can analyze the sentiment of what people are saying and see, so how do they feel about it, positive or negative? Maybe they think this product is super high quality, but the price is really high. And so they talk about those things a lot, and you have a very positive association with quality comments, but a very low, negative association with price, perhaps. This can help companies identify where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses in our current offerings, or even our competitors' offerings, so that we can then better plan how to target and how to shape new marketing and new products as they're coming out. Mm-hmm. If I can, related to that, we can do forecasting of market trends, where social media analysis, as I was describing, could be just one of many inputs, along with, for instance, economic factors, other market factors. Here, we're taking maybe a different sort of model that's analyzing what has come before, those patterns of either conversations or economic activity over time. And we learn those patterns and project into the future, where do we think the market is going? So understanding not just what the market is saying and what's happening right now, but hopefully being able to see into the next month, next quarter, or even the next year, where do we think that's going? Because that's, of course, when those new products are going to hit the market that we're coming up with right now.
And perhaps it's even too late now, but I'd like to see if I can make this rather theoretic, a little more concrete. Sure. Will I now be able to see what flavor will my Easter egg have, and what packaging color will it have when we come to Easter in April? Well,
for Heidi herself, maybe not. It's not magic, however powerful it is. We can talk about general trends, perhaps, and we can probably get a pretty good estimate of those kind of things by, again, looking at the data we have now and projecting that forward. So while there's always a little of uncertainty, prediction is hard, especially about the future, as the saying goes. We can definitely get a much more precise and a much more reliable estimate than doing it traditionally with human experts giving their best guesses. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. I've actually received a question. I'm just going, it's rather long. I just have to see if this is...
Sure.
It is relevant right now. I see. Hi, I am a PhD graduate from Aarhus University, and during my research, I investigated how technological advancements and AI can improve the social footprint of production systems, and I'd like to know the potential of using such research in Columbus and in business. So the research on the social footprint of production system, for instance, using machine learning to lower the social impact of the production system and customizing. This may be a little later that we will take this up, the more production side of it, but
Sure.
from the consumer point of view, or from the market point of view, would this be, if I understand the question correctly, how can we use this to understand, for instance, trends in the footprint that production is giving, taking into account the new trends within how we evaluate
Sure, sure.
sustainability, for instance, sustainability trends?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. And certainly, as companies are coming with new products and new processes, as they're trying to constantly evolve to keep up with the market, sustainability is a huge topic. Consumers, in times past, cared less. That's no longer the case. And the way we see it going, that's only going to increase and spread. So that's something that companies very much care about, and they very much want to be able to assure their consumers that they're thinking about that and that they're producing products that adhere to those principles. So one of the ways that this impacts is certainly delivering those insights and being able to show companies exactly how important this is and to which demographics, of course. But as you alluded to, I think we'll get a little bit more into how that might impact, say, actual, factory or supply chain processes as well.
But let's keep in mind that there is a question on how we adapt to other external changes. You had a comment?
Yeah, because what we also see today is that the companies are using CSR reports, corporate social responsibility reports, and they are also calculating how much CO2 emission they are using. So we will be able to, in the near future, we will also, every company, I guess, would be obliged to actually create these data. So then you can begin to analyze these data as well, see if I change this ingredients with this ingredient, what will the impact be, and so on. And that could be AI doing that.
Let us talk much more about that. That is very interesting. And I can only confirm what you are saying. All our members, many of our members are very interested in how do we adapt also to the climate situation, biodiversity, land use, etc. And we will need a lot of measurement and smarter tools to actually crunch what is going on out there and how we can adapt to it. So we'll get back to this. Let's move ahead to make sure that we get around all of the steps.
Well, I think actually our next step brings us right back to that question again. Another very common way that AI and machine learning is applied in businesses in many different industries is through something called supply chain optimization. This is actually something that Columbus has worked with companies recently spanning continents to very great effect, helping them optimize production and delivery supply chains, to help eliminate redundancies and human error, to help improve efficiency and speed of that whole process. And obviously that has direct impacts in our ability to bring ideas, from the drawing board to the actual market and put them in the hands of consumers. And there are a lot of different methods and ways to do this at its heart, but they all excel at taking super complex systems with lots of different moving parts and lots of variables, things that are very hard for humans, as expert as they may be, to keep track of and handle appropriately. But it's very easy for the machine to keep track of all of that and find the optimal arrangement and the optimal solution. And it's also something that where we can build in other constraints, requirements, or restrictions, such as things from a sustainability standpoint, and identify, okay, great, now, find us the best system under these new restrictions or requirements. And I mean, we often find actually that as we're optimizing those processes, companies are maybe coming to it from a standpoint of controlling costs or improving profit margins, but reducing energy usage, reducing waste within the system is also an environmental question as well.
And is there something specific on the slide I should dwell upon to understand, to support your statements?
Sure. Sorry. Well, the sustainability obviously was a new question, but just to describe a little bit, what's going on the slide. Certainly, for any of these large manufacturing or distribution processes, you have a lot of inputs to the question, right? How much demand for what sectors and where do we need to output? What is our actual capacity for delivering and throughput for the whole system? How much do things cost at different points? Price per unit, price per operation. All of these filter into different optimization algorithms. The picture here is actually from a study where they were looking at ant colonies and identifying how do they solve this problem, because ants work together and end up finding the shortest path throughout very elaborate networks that they've built, and they've actually that's actually a very popular process to then replicate with machines and with computers for human operations as well. They have another one related to how beehives explore and find new sources of nectar for honey. But these algorithms, and there's a wide variety of them depending on the business need and the inputs and outputs required, then can produce that optimized production plan for you that gives you, these are the best we can achieve given all our inputs and our requirements. One really nice thing about this, especially in uncertain times where you might have big supply chain impacts.
Such as a pandemic?
Right, to say. In that sort of situation, I think a lot of companies find out that their supply chain plans go up in smoke, right?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden the world has changed around them.
Will I get my Easter egg?
But using systems like this that has imposed first data and system discipline on the planning, and also produced this optimized plan through this system, it makes it actually much easier to adapt to those kind of changes, as radical as they may be, because you can take those new constraints, those new realities, change your inputs, rerun and retrain the program, and get a new optimized plan for that new reality.
So I don't need to call everybody. I can actually add in some new numbers into the system, and it will provide me with a new plan that I can work after. I don't need to use days and days to try to see who can call whom in order to fix that things will be changed in the near future. That sounds like it's optimizing my time as well.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Right. We have so many slides that we still need to discuss. I think we should slowly move forward. I'll just check while you are swapping to the next slide if there come new questions. No questions have come in yet, but I would like to remind the audience that if you have a question to the experts or to me that I could try to answer, please put them below the screen, and I will receive them on my phone as we go. And those that we don't answer right now, we will try to answer when we wrap up today or afterwards. Right, let's see.
Sure.
So
I think, we've been talking about supply chain optimization of the factory or production processes. we can also drill down a little bit more specifically and talk about predictive maintenance. And this is focused more on, say, specific machines in a mechanical process, right? Robotic arms in a car factory, or cleaning and cooking machines in a food production system. Any mechanical part like that has a particular lifespan. And on the chart here, the rather complicated graph there is showing, they have one lifespan under good maintenance, one lifespan, of course, under poor maintenance, which is much shorter. And they're all subject to failure over, a certain time horizon. There's a space between when a machine starts to fail and when humans would probably notice that it's going to fail, or maybe when regular maintenance checkups might be scheduled, where a machine that is watching real-time, say, telemetry data from that machine, if we're collecting it, such as temperature, vibrations, speed of operation, or other factors that might affect the machine's performance, can be feeding in either in real time, to an analyst's display so that they can see what's happening, or ideally to a machine learning model that can look at that and start to say, okay, when these patterns evolve, when these combinations of factors are, occur, we know that a week now, or maybe a month, or maybe a few minutes, depending, we expect this machine to break down. And the machine can then start to say, raise a warning, and a human analyst would not even necessarily know yet that that machine is in trouble, but the machine learning model is able to predict this needs maintenance. And we can get someone out there and perform preventative maintenance before that becomes a catastrophic failure. And of course, that translates, of course, into lower costs, but especially when we think about, again, this logistics part of this process,
yes.
Downtime, errors, all of that grinds to a halt if the machines aren't working properly.
I imagine that, and especially given the situation you were describing before on delivery problems, it can be a real advantage to actually know that a machine might be breaking down in a month or so.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I was going to ask who exactly can benefit and how is the link to being first on the market and launching your product to the market, but I think I get it now.
Well, you can actually say we have a customer where you could combine two of the things that Ben just talked about. A company selling spare parts to shipping containers. They get the IoT message, or the message from the container, saying, now I'm about to break, and then it calls into the nearest harbor, or the next harbor where the ship is coming to. And then they have to have that repair part at place. So we have tried to make a model where we predict which spare parts should be around 200 harbors in the world. And we tried that 100 times and compared it with 100 times that the people had done it, had planned it, and the computer won 100 times.
Oh, this is the beauty of having a member like Columbus that is taking knowledge from one industry and applying it directly into another. That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for that great example. All right. Yeah. What more would you like to share with us today, Ben?
Well,
are there any other places where you can actually improve your speed?
I could talk about this for 3 hours.
I know.
But I will limit myself to one more slide. And yes, as Bo was saying, a lot of these solutions, these tools, apply across industries. And so, it's also the case that, you don't have to concentrate on just one part of that process, right? A truly data-driven company can attack, any part of the process, or all together, with AI and machine learning tools to help it get faster to market. But I wanted to wrap up with focusing maybe on the end of one of those particular chains where we've gotten a product into a market or a new variation on it, and we want to know, how are we doing? Did we make the right decision? How are customers responding? And rapid A/B testing is one place where AI and machine learning can definitely play a very important role. Now, A/B testing is not a new innovation. That's been a standard tool of market research for a long, long time. AI and machine learning, however, can help make those measurements faster and more precise. But where it really shines is when we can add in customer segmentation, where we take AI and machine learning models and look at our customer base and identify groups within it automatically that have similar buying behaviors, so we can see they're going to respond differently to new products or new types of products. They're going to respond differently to new marketing messages or sales or delivery channels. And we can both target new products more directly to them, but we also know that we can test the market response more specifically. So if you have a niche product, say, we have the new product and it's going to be super fire chili. Not everyone wants that. I like a little bit of chili, but I'm not your market there. But with proper customer segmentation, you can identify these are the places, these are the subpopulations that are going to love that. And we can target that and we can test there how well is it doing. Because we might look at over the whole population and say, well, people didn't really like the fire chili. But if we can serve that market in a more segmented way, then we can make a lot of sales, and we can tailor our production and our supply to that demand.
Now, I can actually translate what you're saying into being a big corporate. If you are Arla Foods, for instance, and you would like to understand in which markets, and then there might be some markets in which you didn't expect that the fire chili, whatever dairy product to be sold would have success that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
But then trying to translate that into being an SME, I'm not sure that I really understand the value of the A/B testing with AI instead of, like you said, sending it out to my customers and getting some feedback. Perhaps you can help me understand.
Sure. Well, I think it actually has more benefit even for a small and medium enterprise. These are going to be businesses that typically have a lot less extra room in the budget to do extensive market testing. And so finding ways to do it faster and more efficiently, ultimately on a lower budget, is going to help them reach more customers. It's going to help them understand better their customers, hopefully see higher profits from using those insights correctly, and eventually grow and stop being small and medium enterprises and start being those bigger enterprises too.
Okay. Well, is there anything else we should notice on the slide or that you would like to highlight?
No, I think I've covered it.
Then we've actually covered, I think we can perhaps move to the next slide. Then you've actually covered all of the aspects that the book was describing in the beginning of a classical, a bit rough perhaps, but a classical way of trying to adapt to the market and be first with a new product. But in our preparations, we've been talking about so many things, such as many of the people that are listening in here may be very interested in applying some of your technology, but what should they take into account? What are the downsides of using AI and machine learning?
Sure, that's actually a really great question. So there are downsides.
If any, yeah.
Yes. Oh, no. There are downsides, or not so much downsides, I would say, but pitfalls, places where we can do this and it goes wrong. And I think a lot of that stems from when we focus on the the hype or the super cool aspect. And that's ironic because, of course, that's the part that I love, is finding that new model that does like some really amazing calculations, and we can get really cool new insights, or we can use data that we weren't able to use before. And those are all, that's great. But when we focus too much on that from a business perspective, we do a couple things wrong. One, we can end up putting too much faith in the technology. It's not magic, right? They're very powerful tools, and I think they have a huge amount of value and benefit to bring, but they don't replace people. They just help people do what they're doing better, faster, more effectively. And so, thinking that it's going to, you're going to go AI and machine learning, and then all you have to do is push a button and let the machines, run your business for you, you're going to be disappointed and probably invest in the wrong things. And second, it's assuming that once you've built that really cool model, that really cool system, that solves the problem, even if you've correctly identified and you've said this is the problem and this is the machine learning solution that we want to apply. That's just the beginning. You need to actually integrate that with your business, and that's where we've seen a lot of these things fall down. Businesses can bring in a team of PhDs, they can get the data right, they can do that proof of concept, and everyone applauds, and then that project sits on a shelf because it never gets in the hands of people who are going to use it and respond to those insights or that capability day to day.
So there is both the human impact factor when it comes to making the right decisions based on the information that you get, but also the human aspect of resistance towards applying it to my everyday life. Somebody is now coming to me saying that I have processes to change. That needs to be thought of when you're developing this smart new system.
Exactly.
Right. But what is it that it is replacing today? What is it you see when you are in food companies and you are trying to figure out where can we be smarter? What's the tools that this could be?
Well, primarily, I think we see it in the forecasting, because many food producing companies has the problem that there's a short shelf life, so they have to be very much aware of how much to produce. And they often get the orders, the real exact orders, the same day as they have to ship it. So they have to start producing before they have the actual order. So to have a perfect or near to perfect forecast, that would be very much needed, because I have seen bread companies that have up to 40% of their bread that is never eaten by humans. So they either waste it, or they, when it's become too old, they sell it to farmers or cows or whatever. So if they can have a better forecast, then they can reduce food waste and they can earn more money. As margins normally are low still in food companies, just a little bit extra you could waste less than you have directly on the bottom line. So we see it in prediction of forecasts. We have done it both for meat companies, but also for fruit and vegetables. So, and we can actually see that we can hit pretty good what is to expect. And what we can also see, if we feed it with earlier campaigns, where you can say, well, there is a 10% discount, or there is a campaign saying buy 3, pay for 2, then we can also see how that will impact, and then we can plan our campaigns better for the next period, saying what would be most benefit for us. So primarily for forecasting, as we have seen it now, but I don't think there are any limits, because what AI is doing, machine learning is doing more and more, that is that we can feed it with all different kinds of data, and then the system will itself figure out what are the trends, what should I combine in order to get a trend. So if I combine these two factors or these two attributes, then I can see a trend, that if this one goes that way, the other one goes that way, and so on. So the machine can do it itself. So it's also helping you to figure out what are the constraints and what are the what impact do different things have on each other.
But that is where I would need somebody like you to figure out what are the elements I should ask the system to highlight for me. And sometimes I would probably not be able to myself identify what trend I should look into, but perhaps even the system can help me there.
Yeah. It can.
Whereas normally I was probably collecting data in a spreadsheet, Excel sheet or something like that, and evaluating only what we were looking at.
Then you can only
because we've always done that.
Yeah, you can only use historical data. You cannot put any constraints or anything into it and say, if I try this, what will happen then? So AI is good on simulating different things as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think your point there is also very, very important, where the AI and machine learning tools can help identify what are the relationships, what's the data that's truly driving those outcomes, and help us focus on the right things. But it can't do that without human expertise as well, because there's a lot of times where it may find things that are happening by chance that don't really make a lot of sense. You need both the tools and the human expertise to understand how do we use this, how do we understand those insights, and how do we target it for what we're trying to do.
Well, thank you for not taking the human factor completely out of this. Being partly a humanist myself, I feel relieved. But I don't know if there are more comments to add to the question that we got related to how the whole industry. I don't know if we can actually open up this discussion a little bit on how the whole industry can adapt better to an uncertain future concerning climate, biodiversity, and arable land use, for instance. You've actually mentioned that forecasting is a good thing because you can avoid then overproducing and then avoid a lot of food waste, which is then creating 30% of the food production across the world is being 30 to 40%, depending on who you ask, is being destroyed before it's being eaten. And I'm sure that more intelligent forecasting could help on that problem. But are there other good examples on where we could, and where the industry as such will be using this? What do you see?
Sure. Well, I think in the environment here that we're in now of increasing global warming and increasing concerns about climate, the impacts that can have on supply chains globally, on top of everything else, of course, it makes it more and more important for companies in this sector to be able to respond quickly to changes. And a lot of that is going to come from moving more and more to digitalization, to getting their data right in the first place. And this is before we get to the questions about AI and machine learning, of course, is getting to that modern data platform now, whether that's on premises or in the cloud or some version of that, and getting away from data silos and having things too much in cold storage. Putting that at decision makers' fingertips is the table stakes, as we call it in poker. It's going to be a basic requirement to be able to plan for now, but be able to quickly adapt those plans as now changes. It's also going to be fundamental to be able to implement any of the AI or machine learning tools that we've talked about, the examples here, and countless others that companies may want to explore. Having the data right and having it accessible and having the infrastructure to support those tools is crucial, of course. And then, being able to integrate that, being able to take what you've developed and make it a part of your business day to day, that's the new battle right now, I think, in AI and machine learning. And that's applicable to this industry and across industries. being able to take those great ideas and make them work in production at scale for people, and not just sit on a shelf.
You're mentioning a couple of aspects that make me get more questions. One is we're working at Food and Biocluster Denmark. One focus is digital transformation. Another one is adapting to the climate. And we're discussing with our members, with the authorities, what is it we must measure in order for the food industry to be able to provide the data that is by legislation being asked for. One is the product environmental footprint being rolled out by the European Commission. And one of the discussions we have there is probably the data is, or the data processing is there to process the data and can be used smartly, but we still need to discuss how to get the data right and what is it we want to measure, and that becomes a political thing. But could AI even help us find the right way to measure? I can't imagine a Madagascar vanilla producer having to every day type in data, and I'm not sure where he would type in that data. Is there any linkage there? If you understand my question, if it makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I think the answer is yes. Certainly, I don't want to venture into hype myself. There are limits to what AI machine learning can do. Humans have to lead. They have to know where they want to go. And those computing tools can help us get there. That said, there are methods of trying to, looking at data with some of these models and having that kind of pull out patterns and insights that we didn't know that we were even looking for. We can use that with clustering, with principal components analysis. There's a couple other, I can get more technical about it, but the key here is that applying these models can help us identify in the data things that we do want to focus on if we're going in not knowing beforehand what we want to focus on. It can also help, help us if we go in with a particular theory of how things work or what is important, and we find, well, actually, no, it seems to be these relationships or these structures here. So again, it's both humans leading and the machines helping.
All right.
And you also have to get the data from somewhere.
Right.
So,
that
for
was
instance,
my
the
point,
greenhouse
yeah.
protocol, greenhouse gas protocol, they have this scope 1, 2, and 3, and some of them are pretty easy to find data around, but scope 3 is pretty difficult, because how do you measure how much the CO2 emission you have from your site to the customer, because the customers could be anywhere. And also you also have to, well, we see soybeans are being used a lot for protein, right? But now they are imported from South America, but now we're trying to use or produce protein in different ways. We have some that are doing it from I don't know what it's called in English, but søstjerner, where you cross those and get the protein out of it. And we have seen that the grass that is grown on the field, you also produce protein powder out of that. So therefore you can say that soybeans imported from South America, they have a huge CO2 footprint, but those from nearby, they don't. So
Because
if you
of
have
the
these
transport.
figures, then you can begin to say, okay, how much can I actually change if I use this instead of something else?
Something to food for thought also for the politicians. And you actually also touched upon this. This is called an Inno Talk, because we try to talk about innovative issues. And we were discussing before, what is the next innovation that we will see coming from machine learning and AI, as in the discussions when I've been discussing with Columbus and saying, what is the problem? The answer was not really that there was a technical problem. It's more adapting. But what do you see will be coming next for within AI and machine learning?
Sure. I think I touched on it a little bit before, but it's definitely that, some people talk about it as democratization of AI, but it goes hand in hand with the maturing of the industry and the practices and regularizing it, bringing it back down to earth in ways that are much more reliable, repeatable, and have dependable outputs. People talk about ML ops, machine learning ops, as a way to have this kind of continuous development, integration, but also continuous retraining of models as necessary to help put this into more standard business processes. It's not just the wild mad scientist experiment or cowboy operation anymore. This has to work for regular people. It has to produce value for the business, which means it needs to integrate with the rest of business. And so there's always more innovations happening, on the forefront of AI modeling and new tools and techniques. But I think the real ground shift in the industry right now is going from, okay, we have a team of PhDs and they're developing these new products, to, no, we're focusing on the engineering and making this work in production.
Right, democratizing it. I actually like that word. Unfortunately, we will have to wrap up. The hour is almost gone already.
Oh, wow.
So thank you so much for all the insight that you've brought. I'm sure there's plenty of, or I sense there is plenty of more to discuss, and we should, but that will be outside this room. I'd like to invite all of the listeners to actually reach out if you are interested in developing either a project which can be supported by Food and Bio Cluster Denmark, or directly interact with the Columbus as potential user of the applications. But I'd also once again remind you to just type in your information to the right of the screen that you're seeing. Put your email and your name in there, and we will ensure that you will receive the slides, a couple of useful links after today. I need to say thank you to those that are supporting us financially, because this event and many others would not be possible without the support from the Danmarks Erhvervsfremmebestyrelse through the innovation program Innovationskraft. I would like to also just mention that the issue of using technology in a smarter way is a cornerstone to the work we're doing. The next event that is going on and that is going to take place is a physical event in Aalborg that will be on November 15th, in which you will be able to hear an event co-hosted with Digital Lead on technology trends that drive the digital change of the food and agro industries. And here you will hear both results of an analysis, or newly, actually not even published yet, analysis by Teknologisk Institut, or Denmark, the Danish Technological Institute. And Force Technology will be there to also present some inspirational cases. You can read more about this on our website, or you can contact my colleague Ivan Nautrup. And as always, we're a membership organization. You can also become a member even if you're not today. And you can always stay updated on what is going on both within the cluster organization and in general in the industry if you follow us by signing up for the newsletter. But back to you, and thank you so much for coming here, Bo and Ben. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, our pleasure as well. Thank you.
Thank you all, and bye-bye.